Please welcome our speaker, author, and an adamant wine snob, Dr. Renee Townsend.
Thank you. I told her that's the most important part, that line at the end. So did you know that out of all of the new nurses who quit their first job within the first 6 months, 60% of them are quitting because of the bad behavior of their coworkers? Study came out from Kaplan not too long ago that showed half of all newly graduating nurses right now are afraid that they're going to become the target of workplace bullying. Did you know that 60% of us say we feel burned out? 60% in healthcare. If you do the math, there are, 3.1 million of us practicing right now? That's over 2 million of us who say we feel burned out with our work. So we have problems, don't we? So we're going to talk. Because here's what I know. We focus so much on our employees, don't we? We focus on making sure that they're engaged and that we're helping to reduce their fatigue and burnout. But what about us as leaders? And so we're going to do this as bookends. This morning we're going to talk about bullying. This afternoon we're going to talk about the other problem of burnout. And when I think about bullying and burnout, I always have to stop and think, well, what's the impact? I always pull the so what factor out. So what? We've got bullying, so what? We feel burned out. How does it show up? I'm telling you how it shows up. It shows up in the way your employees come to work. It shows up in the way they work or not work together to care for your patients. This is what I know. If your employees don't feel supported, don't feel comfortable communicating with each other, and don't feel that they have the energy to do what it takes to care for your patients, it shows up with your patients. How we treat each other and how we feel about our work is just as important as the clinical care that we provide. So again, we're going to talk this morning, bullying, this afternoon. I'm going to give you some strategies to reduce leadership fatigue and burnout, and it's not what you think. It's not the same old, same old. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting study that I read not too long ago, it was a little shocking to me, showed that out of all the healthcare leaders out there, only 6% of us have identified bullying and incivility as a top priority. Yet 90% of us said it was a problem in our organization. Why is that? It's because we have a lot of competing demands, don't we? We know it's there, but we just hope and pray that it doesn't show up in our patient outcomes. And we're going to talk about how it actually does. So here's my challenge. I do this for a living. I spend weeks at a time on this topic. I've got an hour with you. So what I'm going to do is give you what I think are the most important things you need to know about this problem. It's going to feel probably a little bit like speed dating, okay? It's okay, we'll get through it. But I'm really hoping that at the end, you'll at least walk away with a few strategies that you can take back and start adopting right now. Deal? Okay. All right, we first have to start talking about the basics, because I'm telling you, if you get this, you've gotten more than probably about 75% of the leaders who I talk to. First of all, bullying is a behavior, it's not a person. We tend all the time to call somebody, oh, she's the queen bully. Oh, he's the king bully. Oh, she's bullying me, I'm being bullied. When I was a unit director, I had a 35-bed medical telemetry unit many years ago. Rough unit. Every day somebody would be in my office complaining about the behavior of their coworkers. I knew it was going to be a bad day when I'd walk into work. My office was all the way at the end of the unit. I knew it was going to be a bad day when there was already a line waiting for me. I'm like, oh Lord, maybe they didn't see me yet. I can hurry up and sneak out. Especially if they came in and shut the door and whispered, and then I knew it was really going to be bad. But I remember this one nurse came into my office, shut the door, and she says, I can't stand working with her. She's such a bully. I got nothing for you. What am I supposed to do with that? So I'd say, well, what did she do? She's so condescending. She makes me feel like I'm stupid. Again, what am I supposed to do with that? And I'd have to work with her to get her down to exactly what she did. Well, as soon as she saw I was in charge, she threw her clipboard on the counter and said, today's going to be awful because you suck at being in charge. Well, that I can do something about. This is what I want you to do. When somebody comes to you and they say, I'm being bullied, I want you to say back, okay, now let's talk about this, or let's unpackage this. What did this person do? What did this person say? Because you can address a behavior, you can't address a person. And we tend to label people, and labeling, we know this, right? Never helps. Now, in the context of this environment, I'm going to say queen bully, I'm going to say bullying, okay? But out there, just try. Even though I talk about this, I still find leaders are out there saying, I told this person she's the bully. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. Focus on the behavior. Okay. We know that bullying is destructive to your employees, to you, to your organization, but ultimately to patients. I mean, think about all these new nurses who are leaving. Cha-ching, cha-ching. And guess what? Some of the experienced nurses have had enough and they're leaving too. Cha-ching, cha-ching. We know that it undermines everything that you're trying to do. You say you have a culture of high quality, safe patient, innovation. If your subculture is bullying, that becomes your culture. And we do know that it's everyone's responsibility, not just your job as the leader. That's good news. And the other piece of good news is that it is a skill that you can develop. And I'm going to do some of that skill development today. And if you really want to create a professional, nurturing, supportive work environment, it's called my trifecta, really. You need to strengthen your organization, you need to equip your frontline leaders, and you need to empower your employees. You need all three. All right, number one question I get asked when people reach out to me, they'll say, well, how do I know if my coworker's a bully or maybe just a drama queen? You got any of them? Or maybe just a jerk? You got any of them? Or you know what? Maybe my coworker's just having a bad day. Think about the stressful environments that we find ourselves in healthcare in particular. Life and death, the unpredictability. Raise your hand if you remember the worst day you ever had at work. Did you know when you were walking in that day it was going to be your worst day? Of course not. When we are under stress, humans, we're not always on our best behavior now, are we? Raise your hand if you've never gotten testy with anyone at work. Thank you for not lying, okay? Seriously. We can all get testy. It was funny. So up until June of this year, I still practiced at the bedside, 1 or 2 days a month at a local hospital in Pittsburgh, just to kind of keep my toe dipped in the water. In June, I was only home 2 days, 2 full days. And those were the 2 days that I had to work at the hospital. And I made the decision, done, okay? I cannot do this anymore, so I resigned. But this was about a year ago. I usually work Saturdays like 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. I was flying home from somewhere Friday night, got stuck in DC, had to rent a car to drive home, got home at midnight. I know I shouldn't pray for this stuff, okay? But when I woke up Saturday morning, I prayed, please, dear God, let them call me off, please. Because I was always the first one to get called off. Because I had a flight the next morning at 6 a.m. to fly somewhere else. They didn't call me off. I go into work. stressed. I look at the assignment board. Emily, the coordinator, was sitting there. And I saw that they were sending Pam home at 11 o'clock, who's also casual. But they brought me in. So I said to Emily, just like this, "Oh, you're sending Pam home, but you brought me in." And Emily looks up at me, and she's like, "I'm sorry, do you not want to be here today?" Sweet, not sarcastic. I love Emily, she's awesome. And all of a sudden, I saw myself, and I thought, oh my God, I teach this stuff. And there I am, taking it out on Emily. And I said, oh my God, Emily, I am so, so sorry. And then I did what we all do when we misbehave. I did the justification dance. I didn't get home till midnight last night. I have a flight tomorrow morning. I didn't even do laundry yet, okay? And then I said to her, are we okay? She's like, yeah, Renee, we're okay. I'm like, I'm really sorry. It still bothers me that I treated her that way. But why did I treat her that way? Am I a bully? No, I was under an incredible amount of stress, and I just lashed out. And I really thought about this. I don't think anybody on their way into work is thinking, who can I bully today? Who can I make cry today? Well, there might be a few people like that. Did you know that 25% of all human beings are not mentally healthy? Take a look around the room, folks. Do not start pointing fingers at each other, okay? Did you know that 1 out of every 9 humans in this country is on an antidepressant? And I know a few more who should be on one. Have you noticed that you're dealing more and more with the mental health issues of your patients, their family members, and your coworkers? So how do you know? Here's the deal. Let's say you're in a crisis situation. You go running in to help somebody. They scream and yell at you, call you names, embarrass you in front of everybody because you didn't bring what they wanted you to bring. Is that person a bully? Here's the deal. If that person is not a bully, that person will recognize that he or she behaved in a way that was completely inappropriate and apologize, like I did to Emily. If that person is a bully, this is what I know about them. They don't apologize. They justify their behavior. Well, yeah, I had to scream at her. She's an idiot. Who hired her? And then this is what they do. Who precepted her? Because they blame the preceptor for the rest of that nurse's career. I'm like, yeah, that was 10 years ago. Get over it, okay? For me, knowing what I know about this work, this statement that I'm going to make right now is the most important for you to know and live and breathe when you're walking out of here. You have to get really clear on what bullying is and what bullying is not. This is the definition of bullying. It's the repeated patterns of destructive behavior with the conscious, I know I'm doing this to you, or unconscious, I don't even realize it, attempt to do harm. Now I want you to write down these 3 things. When somebody reaches out to me and they say, I'm being bullied, and I say, okay, let's talk about this. This is what I'm looking for. For behavior to be considered bullying, you need to have 3 things. Number 1, there has to be a target. Let's say I work with Melissa here. And Melissa and I are colleagues. I don't happen to like Melissa. She always wears that red suit, and she's got nice lipstick on all the time, and I don't like it. So I target Melissa. And every time we're in a meeting and Melissa has an idea, I'm going to squash it in front of people. I'm going to find an opportunity to make her look bad in front of other people, but I'm fine with everybody else. So there has to be a target. It could be one person or a small group of people. I work the night shift, and I hate all you day shift nurses because you have it made, okay? You don't do any work. You got all the resources. I've been a nurse here for 75 years, and I don't like all you young whippersnappers who are coming in thinking you're all that in a bag of chips, okay? So I'm an older nurse, seasoned nurse, and I don't like new nurses. The point is there has to be a target. Second criteria is the behavior has to be harmful in some way. If I roll my eyes at Melissa, is that harmful to her? No, it's not. It's not nice. But unless it's a part of a whole other group of behaviors by itself, eye rolling is not harmful. You know, I see this all the time. We have zero tolerance for bullying here, zero tolerance. Well, you can't have zero tolerance for everything. You can't have zero tolerance for eye rolling. Nobody would be employed, okay? Eye rolling is not harmful. But if we're staff nurses and she's following me and I leave out a critical piece of information to watch her fail, is that harmful? Yes. Yeah. Behavior has to be harmful. What we look at most importantly is it harmful in some way to patients? And then the third criterion, I think this is probably one of the most important distinctions, the behavior has to be repeated over time. It can't be one time I get testy with you in a code situation or any type of crisis, or if I'm having a personal crisis. It can't just be that one time I'm inappropriate. You have to see it repeated over time. Now, other experts say for it to be bullying, it has to be repeated for 6 months. I disagree. I think you can identify it as bullying just in a couple of weeks. Think about orientation. And when I say orientation, I'm not just talking new employees. I'm talking new to the role. When I became a new educator, started all over again. When I became a new executive, started all over again. I'm like, are you kidding me, people? So just think about that. This is what I find. So I do a lot of deep dives in organizations. You know, when you do an admission assessment on a patient, you ask the patient, have you had any surgery? And the patient says no, and you lift up the gown, it looks like a road map. You know, and they're like, oh, that was my gallbladder. Oh, that was my appendix. You gotta pull back the covers and lift up the gown in your organization to see what's happening, and I do that. This is what I find. Not a lot of bullying. Not a lot of true bullying, but an awful lot of incivility. And incivility is that eye rolling. It's the low level, condescending, I help my friends, but I don't help the people I don't like. This is what I know about incivility. If you ignore it, it can lead to bullying. And this is what I also know. Bullying, that's actionable. You got HR policies about that. If you can show that somebody's been targeted, behavior's harmful, and it's been repeated, slam dunk. Incivility, that's culture. That's different. That's much harder. And I'm going to tell you, my favorite audience in the world is this audience right here, as a group of leaders, because you determine the culture. Here's what's not bullying. The boss holding the employee accountable for their performance. They're gonna love this. Nurses reach out to me all the time. I had this one nurse, she said, my boss is the bully. Okay, let's talk about this. Here's the deal, sometimes the boss is the bully. Did you know industry-wide, 56% of all bullies are in some way a boss? And you know what I say? Shame on you. You should be the role model for professional practice, professional behavior. But we know sometimes they are. So I'll say, okay, well, what did your boss do? My boss wrote me up. What did your boss write you up for? For calling off. How many times did you call off? 27 times. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. No. That's not bullying. Constructive feedback is not bullying. Your new nurses, this newer generation, they don't know how to receive constructive feedback because they never had it. That's a whole other conversation I don't have time to talk about today, but this is what you do. That was supposed to be funny. Here's what you do. Day one, you sit down with somebody who's new and young and you say, look, my goal is to help you to be successful here. And in order for me to do that, we're going to give you a lot of feedback. We're going to tell you the good, the bad, and if we have to, we're going to tell you the ugly. Because our goal is to help you to succeed here in this space, okay? And then you teach your preceptors every day at the end of their shift with that new person. Here's one thing you did really well. Be specific. Here's one thing I want you to work on. We all got something we need to work on. Be specific. Get them used to it from the beginning. You don't sit down after 6 weeks, 8 weeks, tell them they're not up meeting standard performance. They're going to call it bullying because they don't know how to receive it. Conflict, difference of opinion, you know that. Okay. So why is it so prevalent in healthcare? Well, high stress. We just talked about this, life and death. We also know, especially nursing, we're a female-dominated profession. Take a look around the room. And let's face it, ladies, we're not always that nice to each other. And there are lots of theories behind this. It stems years ago when women used to compete against each other to marry the prized male, to marry the banker, the lawyer, the doctor. How did we do that? We did that by squashing other women, squashing our competition. Fast forward to today, women are the lawyers, the bankers, the doctors, but we haven't let go of those squashing tendencies. If you take, there's a certain species of crab. If you take those crabs in a basket, you're going to take them to the kitchen, you're going to cook the crabs. You're always going to find that one crab that tries to escape. What do the other crabs in the bottom of the basket do when they see that? They pull that crab back down. They will break off that crab's claws, kill the crab, just so the crab doesn't escape. You know, there's another species of crabs I've learned recently that does the opposite. When they see that one crab trying to escape, what do? They all join together and help lift that crab up. Wouldn't that be nice? Some of the most common examples of really bad behavior are when somebody, a female, gets an award, gets promoted, gets some accolade, and those other females downplay it, give them more work to do, talk about them behind their back as if they weren't deserving of it. Now, please don't be offended by this, because I know not all women are like this. I happen to not be one of them. I love to celebrate the accomplishments of other women. We're not all like that, but you've all had statistics. You got to look at that bell curve, and you got to think about your employees, because that's where it's happening. And you know, in general, we feel this sense of forced oppression. We can't say no. We just take, and Melissa, Shelley, and I were talking last night about this. Everything falls on the nurses' shoulders. And it's not just the staff nurses, it's your shoulders too. Well, get nursing to do it. Well, what about nursing? What about us? Leave us alone, okay? We got enough to do. But we almost feel compelled because remember, we're in the service industry. We were designed many, many years ago to never say no. It was about, 8 months or so ago, and Tracy, one of our coordinators at work, she's like, Renee, I'm sorry, but I have to give you an admission. I said, Tracy, that's why I'm here, is to get admissions. But my inside voice said, crap, I have to get an admission. Okay. I didn't want to get an admission either. I just got caught up. You can't say, nah. And then how many of you think that all bullies suffer from low self-esteem? A lot of them do. I don't feel good about myself, so if I squash you, it makes me feel better. There's a whole new group of people coming into healthcare who actually suffer from a little high self-esteem. And we're not going to go too far down that path again either, okay? And it is this generation that we call them the overpraised generation, okay? That when I went back into practice about 6 years ago, I worked neurotrauma step down, that's sort of my comfort zone. And I quickly realized that about 75% of all of the nurses who I worked with had less than 2 years experience and they were in their early 20s. I would leave work every day saying this: they don't even know what they don't know, but they act like they do. And that's sometimes a scary thing. And I'm finding the trend where it's the newer nurses eating the older nurses alive. And you know what? They're not all like that. I don't like to label people. And I feel bad for them because we did it to them. Helicopter parents who are so worried about their self-esteem, and you've heard all the stories. Everybody gets a trophy, everybody gets a ribbon. You didn't have to show up for a practice, and yet your walls in your bedroom were lined with trophies, okay? We constantly told them how special they were. If you're my age, our parents may have told us we were special, but it went like this. Oh, you think you're special, don't you? Mm-hmm. I'll knock you down a peg. Okay? But you have to know they are there, okay? Now, again, I don't like to label them, and there are some of them, especially young, new leaders, who give me hope for the future of nursing. Remarkable, brilliant beyond their years, wise beyond their years. But we just need to help them, okay? Why does bullying continue? Well, number one, and this is probably where it starts. We've just accepted these behaviors as the norm. Well, that's just the way it is in nursing. Nurses eat their young. Well, now we eat our old, we eat everything in between, we eat everything. We're just a bunch of eaters, okay? If you take a frog and you drop that frog into boiling water, a frog's going to jump out. Yet if you put that frog into tepid water and you slowly increase the temperature to boiling, the frog's just going to sit there until it boils to death. Because the frog doesn't realize that its environment has now become toxic. You know this is a problem in your organization when you hear things like, well, that's just the way she is. Don't let anything she says bother you, or don't take it personally, or you know what, if you have any questions, don't go to him. He doesn't like people very much. How does somebody work in healthcare and doesn't like people? Or you're going to have to grow a thick skin if you're going to want to survive here. We've accepted these behaviors to the point where we fail to recognize them as abnormal. Become numb to it. We also have this problem called retaliation. Nobody's speaking up. Nobody's doing anything about it because we're so afraid that somebody may retaliate against us if we do. So when I was this manager, I was new to leadership, new to the organization, found out that I agreed to be the manager on a 35-bed medical telemetry unit that had the worst reputation in the entire organization, 700-bed hospital. Did they tell me? By the way, in full disclosure, we can't keep managers past a year. You'd be number 8. No. I would have somebody come into my office complaining about their coworker. I'd say, oh, can you please write that down? Oh, I'm not writing anything down. Okay, I'm going to go and talk to her. No, don't say anything. If she finds out, she'll make my life a living hell. It was very quickly, I'd say within the first 2 months, that I realized there were 4 of my employees that I owed it to the human race to fire. 2 of them were RNs, 2 of them were nursing assistants. When I went to their HR file to see where they were in the disciplinary process, what do you think I found? Nothing. I had to start from scratch. After I started to get to know some of the people there, this is how naive I was. I thought about this. Here they are, like orphan children, going from foster home to foster home, and people leaving them, promising, no, I'm here for you, and then leaving them. You know what I thought they needed? They just needed love. They just needed for me to show them that I love them. So what I did was I would have staff meetings, 7 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because we did some 8-hour shifts back then. And then I'd even do them at 11 o'clock at night. I'd stay. Sometimes I'd come in the middle of the night just to be with my night staff, because the night staff don't think you care about them, okay, because you're never there. Meanwhile, we know they don't want you there, okay? That's why they work nights, okay? Don't hand me that. On to you. Remember those kudos bars? Kudos bars? I'd carry them with me and I'd walk on the unit. Kudos to you. Oh, and here's a kudos to you. And don't forget you. Kudos to you over there. Okay, I would bring them pizza. I'd bring in treats. I'd come in on Sundays with my kids. They were little. You know, just checking on you guys. Meanwhile, I live 45 minutes away. I was in the neighborhood. No, I wasn't. The one morning, the night supervisor came into my office, shut the door, sat down. She said, Renee, I'm really sorry, but I need to tell you this. She said, I was on your unit last night. They were all sitting around the nurse's station bad-mouthing you, talking about how you don't care about them, and how you never hold anybody accountable like you said you would. I cried. I felt like I sacrificed my family, my friends, myself to show them how much I cared. And that whole accountability thing, for two of them, all I needed was one more thing, and I could have terminated them. But I couldn't walk around doing this. All I need is one more thing. All I need is one more thing. Give me one more thing. I couldn't do that. Why? Because it's confidential. So by the time I did my job and made sure those 4 people never cared for patients again, I was so beat up, I quit. And you know what? For years, I felt like a failure. I felt like I failed as a leader. And now I'm older and wiser. I didn't fail. I wasn't skilled. I had no idea. You know what my director told me to do? When I was like, oh my God, these people, like I could spend the rest of the day telling you examples of some of their behaviors. You know what she told me to do? God love her, she's a sweetheart, but she said, go out, like I had like, they were like the equivalent of your charge nurses, but they had some other responsibilities too. They didn't take patient assignments, that's another issue, because I was staffing. She said, oh, go out drinking with them. I kid you not. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, take them out. Go to get margaritas with them. That'll help you bond with them. So Friday night, when we're drinking margaritas, Monday I'm trying to hold them accountable. They're like, are you kidding me? I have a picture of you like this. I didn't fail. The system failed me as a leader. And I vowed never to let that happen to any leader ever again, because it took me a long time to realize that it wasn't me. Sometimes I wish I could go back and be that leader again, because, oh, now I know what I'm doing, okay? So now I'm helping you. All right, the third reason, here's something I want you to do. Please, please, please do this. When your employees come to you and they complain about their coworkers, they don't think you're doing anything about it. You need to tell them, look, when you come to me and you complain to me about behaviors that I'm concerned about, this is my process. This is what I do. I investigate, and that requires that you actually have a process, okay? Just assume that if you don't go back and tell your employees the outcome, they're assuming that you didn't do anything about it. You need to say, I'm doing something about it. You're not going to know the outcome because it's confidential. Tell them that so they don't spend time and energy thinking that the boss doesn't do anything to hold people accountable. However, third reason is because you are using silence as a strategy. You're not holding your people accountable. You're not engaging in honest conversations with your employees who are misbehaving. It's a huge reason why we continue to see these problems. Okay, time for a puppy break. Can I grab some water?
We'll show her again.
Sometimes we work with a lot of cats. All right, we talked about behavior, and what we're going to do now is I just want to give you a couple of examples of some behaviors and how you can categorize them, because that's the first step. You got to get really clear on what that behavior is. Simple way to do this is just categorize it as overt and covert. So overt, you can see it, everybody would describe it the same way. I have surveyed thousands of employees, nurses, physicians, support staff. The number one behavior that I'm seeing out there, yelling, cursing, criticizing, gossiping in patient care areas in front of patients, okay? Number one. So I had a nurse and a nursing assistant who did not get along. Everybody knew it. They were both working 3 to 11. One night, got a call from security at 1 o'clock in the morning. Never a good sign. My nursing assistant said to my nurse, "My boyfriend knows what shuttle you take, and he's going to be waiting for you. He's going to beat the SHIT out of you." She said that with her outside voice. In the hallway, in front of my patients' rooms, 3 times. How do you think security found out about it? The wife of one of my patients heard this, called security. I was able to suspend this nursing assistant pending an investigation. And then 2 weeks later, brought her into the human resource department and fired her. I was able to fire her that quickly is because, I have plenty of documentation. That wife, another patient, pharmacy tech delivering meds. I had an escort bringing a patient up from the emergency room who was being admitted to my unit with chest pain, roulette MI. Can you imagine being that patient being wheeled up, hearing this? "Ooh, it's a miracle. My pain went away. Take me back, take me back, take me back," okay? Not one of my employees documented it. You know, when I terminated her, she got mad, she got defensive. She said, and this is what I want you to pay attention to, these are the ways that people can defend themselves. They can do the justification dance, okay? But this is what she said to me. "I can't believe you're firing me for this. I was just kidding." Can't she take a joke? That's what they'll do. "Oh, I'm just messing with you." Or, "Why are you being so sensitive?" Or they'll say something like, "Oh, like you never do that," okay? There's all sorts of ways. And here's a classic one. Tell me if you've had this happen. Well, who said it? Who told you? When? What time? What pen did they use? Was it black ink? Was it, blue ink? And we get caught in that trap of, I'm like, doesn't matter. I believe this to be true. You gotta be smarter than that. They're gonna try to distract you. Focus on their behavior. It took me 15 minutes before I could stand up. I was so weak in the knees. I'd never fired anyone. She was a single mom with 4 kids. You're keeping people employed because you feel bad for them. I'm sorry, as a leader, you have to make ethical decisions based on what's best for the public. Who's the public? Take a look around the room. We're the public. You can't make decisions because you feel bad for someone. It's either you're going to change your behavior or you're going to leave. Okay? All right. How many of you would rather work with an overt bully any day over a covert one? These are the ones, yeah, I get to work with Debbie today. Woo, woo, Debbie. As soon as Debbie turns around, I'm like, oh, Debbie. Debbie's like, that Renee loves me. Meanwhile, then I go and spew my venom about her. Okay, well, I love Debbie. I would never do that. Do you know when people feel socially excluded, the pain center of their brain lights up? We are born as individuals, but we survive and thrive in groups and social groups. You've got a lot of exclusion happening in your departments. And when you exclude someone, it's painful to them. I'm just not going to give you all the information you need to be successful. These are the people who stab you in the back, sabotage. We could go on and on. But I do want to make you realize that in all of my experiences, these are 4 common themes that I see, especially on the inpatient side. And I know some of you might not be on the inpatient side. We have shift wars, the day shift versus the night shift. And you know where the battlefield is, right? Shift report. That's when all the weapons come out. That's when you see all the nitpicking, the dumping, the condescension. Oh my gosh, if you're smart, be there during shift report. La la la, just pay attention. You'll see it. Then we have the seniors versus the juniors. Now there's a difference between hazing and bullying. And I want to make it clear to you. They're the exact same behaviors. You're really hard on new people, okay? So let's say you've got a group of experienced older nurses who are really hard on the new people. If it's pediatrics, they give all the new people, all the trach kids and the difficult mothers, okay? And adults, you get all the train wrecks, the C. diff patients, whatever it is, you're really hard on new people. Same exact behaviors. What's different between them is the intent. If it's hazing, my intent is pure and good. I'm hard on you because I think I'm helping you. Because that's how I learned how to be a great nurse. They threw me into the deep end of the ocean without a life vest and I had to sink or swim. Think about fraternities, sororities, they go through rush. You know, people die in rush. But if you can make it through, welcome to the club. If it's hazing, it's to include. If it's bullying, same behaviors. I'm going to be really hard on you, give you all the worst patient assignments, dump on you. But the intent is to squash you. It's to exclude you. What you have to figure out, if you've got older, seasoned nurses, are they hazing or are they bullying? If they're hazing, you need to tell them that they're wrong. Studies show when you're hard on people during the learning phase, you make them less competent. There's a positive correlation between confidence and competence. So how do you get confident? You master the easy first. You got to shower them with support at first until they master, and then you give them a little bit more difficult, and then, okay? Huge problem. Those senior nurses are so damn stingy with their knowledge. I cannot tell you how many times I'll say, go look it up yourself. I'm not your mother. This ain't nursing school anymore. Oh my, who's going to teach them what you know? I'll just give you this tip or resource. So I blog. Every week I have a new blog. On my blog, you can get it on my website, type in the search, just type in boomer, okay? I wrote an article about bridging the millennial boomer gap. This is what you say. You tell those boomer nurses to say to the newer ones, you just graduated, didn't you? Yeah, I did. You probably have all that latest evidence stuff. You just learned it all. We never did that stuff when I was in school. If we're doing anything here that you don't think is current best practice, oh my God, tell us. You need to tap into that. And you need to have your senior nurses do that with the younger ones. If you have younger nurses that you're hiring, this is how they should talk to the boomers. You've been a nurse here for how long? 40 years. Wow. I bet you could teach me a lot of things that they didn't teach me in that textbook. Will you help me? Anytime it's a brain Jedi mind trick thing, anytime you can only use it for goodness, okay? No manipulation, only for good. Anytime you ask somebody for their help, will you help me? Even if they don't like you, the brain wants to say, yes, I will help you, okay? Have those new nurses ask the older nurses to help them. They'll say, you want my help? Come on, honey, I'll take you under my wing, okay? Anyway, okay, look it up. It's great. Okay, how do you treat people that float to your units? You get people who get pulled from one unit to another unit? Agency, travelers, I bet you treat them like gum on your shoe. I had a manager who was a manager of a float pool, and she reached out to me for help. She said this one unit, every time her nurses get sent there, the staff on that unit changed the code on their bathroom door. You have to use the public bathroom. I don't make any of this up. Take all of the good equipment and hide it and give them the crappy equipment. She gave me a bunch of other examples. She says, what do? I said, first of all, don't assume that manager knows. Don't make an assumption. Ask to meet with that manager. This is not a phone call. For the love of God, this is not an email, okay? This is a face-to-face if you can do that. I'm not sure you're aware of this, but this is what's been happening. She did that. Guess what the nurse manager said? Well, you know how nurses can be. She said, now what do I do? I said, now what do you do? I said, first of all, call your human resource representative, because I get in trouble all the time, okay? I'd go back to that manager and I'd say to her, sit down face to face, look her in the eye, lean in, and say, until you are willing to treat my staff like your staff, I am no longer willing to send you my staff. Got that? Why would you ever subject your employees to that type of ridiculousness? You have cliques? Of course you do. Let's just make sure you don't have a gang. All right, here's the deal. Cliques are normal. Don't go try to break up your cliques. We are born as individuals. We survive and thrive in groups. You break up a clique, a new one will form. Focus on the behavior of those cliques, okay? I have a colleague of mine who's a nurse manager who adopted a second unit. Not you, Debbie. Debbie's like on her third unit now. She said, I've apparently adopted a hairband gang. I'm like, what? There's a gang of employees, not all nurses, who wear hairbands. If you're in the gang, you wear the hairband. If you're not in the gang, you're not allowed to wear the hairband. Kid you not. And how she found out was because a student was doing her practicum there, and when she came in, she saw the hairband. She's like, oh, I didn't know that was part of the dress code, that we could do that, so I'm going to bring in a hairband. The next day, she wore a hairband in the locker room. The one gang member said to her, who gave you that hairband? She's like, nobody, I just brought it in. She's like, you don't wear the hairband until we say you can wear the hairband. And then she pulled it off her head. My friend, what do I do? What do you do? March every one of those gang members into your office. Talk to HR first, okay? Take them off now. If I ever see you wearing that hairband here again, I will send you home. And I will pick up your shift, okay? Be very careful with your cliques. People say all the time, I'm going to go back and break them up. Be very careful because, like I said, they will just reform. Sometimes you try to separate them, work on different shifts, different days, get clear on the behavior. It's so much easier than dealing with human nature. All right, so in the time that I have left, I'm going to give you some practical strategies that you can go back and adopt, even though I've given you some already. Okay, look at this slide. Might take you a moment. Got to know how bad it is. All right, lots of different ways you can do this. There are a lot of validated surveys, negative acts questionnaire, nurse incivility scale. I have an assessment. You can do focus groups. This is what I know about people. They won't tell you, but oh, they tell me everything. Seriously. Some of the things people share with me are so shocking that even as I'm taking notes, I'm like, really? Okay, tell me more. I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe they just admitted this to me. Okay, like really shocking, horrific behavior. Raise your hand if you're doing something right now in your department or in your organization in a consistent manner that's helping you to assess the way employees are treating each other. Okay, can you tell me what you're doing?
As far as engaging with staff about some of those behaviors, whether they're, in response to how they feel about a situation, just to help increase that awareness.
Okay, so you're actually engaging in conversations with the staff. Yeah, because we're going to talk about that in a little while. You have to be engaging in ongoing conversations. Are you collecting any of that as far as data? Okay. It's qualitative right now, or are you doing any quantitative?
Quantitative.
Okay, awesome. And I saw a couple of other hands. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. You need to have a way. You need to have a way to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. It can just be a simple survey that you do with your staff. It can't just be an added question to an employee engagement survey or some kind of Press Ganey survey, okay? And actually, I had an organization say, we just want to add one question onto an existing survey that we have. I'm like, okay, that's great. What's the question? I feel that I work in a bully-free workplace. I'm like, no. What's wrong with that question? You can't assume people all understand what bullying means. I may feel like I'm being bullied because I don't get the shift that I want. I didn't get that promotion. I'm being bullied, okay? So you have to do a little better job than that and collect that information and look at any improvements that you do over time. You cannot assume people know how to behave, unfortunately. People always say, that's it, I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell my employees we're going to start treating each other with respect, respectful behavior. Yeah, you can't assume people know what respectful behavior looks like. So my husband travels with me a lot. He's out at our table out there. This was a couple of years ago. We're walking out of a CVS pharmacy and he says, hey Renee, I've noticed anytime we shop and you're paying with a credit card and they don't have that swipey thing, that you swipe yourself, he said, you just put your credit card on the counter. He said, and I find that disrespectful. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, just now. You paid, they didn't have a swipey thing, so you just put your credit card on the counter. I said, instead of what? He said, instead of handing it to the cashier. And I've seen you do it before. So he's already noticed a pattern of behavior in me, okay? And I said, whoa. I'm thinking, you mean to tell me if I put my card on the counter instead of I'm thinking. I said, you feel it's disrespectful? He's like, yes, I do. Like, you don't even have the courtesy of handing it to the cashier. So how many of you think it's disrespectful? Just kind of put your credit card on the counter. I get only about 40% of my audience who says they think it's disrespectful. So since then, every time I shop somewhere, if they don't have a swipey thing, I say to the cashier, when people come here and they pay with credit, guess how many of them said it was disrespectful? 95%. I think I'm the most respectful human on earth. I teach this stuff. And that I was being disrespectful, didn't even realize it. Here's the deal. It can't just be a code of conduct that you have your employees sign on day one. If signing a piece of paper changed behavior, I wouldn't be standing here talking about this. Okay? Can't just be in a handbook, can't be in an orientation binder that they get. You have to set behavioral expectations as an organization, and then every unit needs to set them for themselves. This is how we treat each other in this space, okay? When I do workshops, I always say, look, sometimes I feel a little magical, sometimes, but I'm not magic. You can't just come to one workshop and check a checkbox and say, yep, now we know how to address this. It has to be ongoing. It can't just be a one-time, especially when it comes to human behavior because it's so complex. And we have to start confronting bad behaviors because we've been using silence as a strategy for so long. People get a little, heebie-jeebies when they think about actually confronting somebody's bad behavior. So I'm going to teach you a couple of simple techniques. First technique is just name it. You're screaming at me in front of people. I just saw you all roll your eyes at me. You just called me stupid. Get clear on what the behavior is and name it. I had a group of students, I used to do some clinical instruction. I had 8 students, a colleague had 8. We were sitting in a room watching a QSIN video. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see movement. And I look, nobody's looking at the screen. They're all looking across from me. It's my student, Jamie, who has her head on the table. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, okay? So I have to get up, walk in front of the projector. I said, Jamie, your head's on the table. What's going on? She said, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I'm like, okay. Pick your head up, we're in class, okay? Sit back down, watching the video, see it again. I look over, her head's back down. I'm like, okay, they don't pay me enough for this, I'm thinking. I go over, I'm like, Jamie, what's going on? Your head's back on the table. She starts talking, that's when I smelled it. Alcohol. Come on, grab your things, let's go out in the hallway. I said, Jamie, you smell like alcohol. You're staggering when you walk. You look like you're drunk. Have you been drinking? She said, yeah. I'm like, all right, let's get your ride home. It was in the evening. Called the director of the program. Everybody has a story, don't they? Here's Jamie's story. It was her birthday. Her friends talked her into stopping at the local Mad Mex for margaritas. She's a little bitty thing. She's my best student. She didn't eat anything. Thought she could handle it. The school wanted to expel her. It was 2 weeks before they were graduating. I talked them into keeping her, okay? Because this is what I know about Jamie. It wasn't a pattern of behavior, it was a mistake. We all make mistakes. Get the story first. If it's a pattern, hold them accountable. If it's a mistake, support, help. She'll never make that mistake again. You know what their solution was? Well, we got to do something to punish her. What do all academics do as punishment? They make you write a 25-page paper, okay? Guess who had to grade that paper? That would be me, okay? But you see what I mean? Just name the behavior. There are 4 communication styles: aggressive, passive, passive-aggressive, and assertive. I do whole workshops on this, okay? We all have our own natural style. The only style we should be using is the assertive style. I need to be honest with you. Sometimes you come across as a little abrasive. Can we talk about this? Because I need to respect you at the same time. It's high honesty and respect. Because here's something we didn't talk too much about. You ever hear somebody say, well, that's just my personality. I'm not warm and fuzzy like you. Yeah, I get that. But if your personality is affecting whether somebody is comfortable communicating with you, then you need to adapt your personality here. Because if I'm not comfortable communicating with you, it's going to stop the flow of information. And if I stop the flow of information, who does that affect? Patients. So teach your staff how to use the assertive communication style. And then how many of you are like me? When somebody comes at me with something negative, threatening, I freeze. I don't know what to say. I'm pretty good ad-libbing, you know what I mean, if it's a fun thing. But if you say something that embarrasses me or gets me upset, I freeze. I can't think of anything to say, and I usually say something that sounds stupid. But the next day in the shower, oh, I can think of all sorts of things to say. Only good, okay? You never want to zing somebody back. That's why I'm telling you scripting is my superpower, okay? I do a lot of scripting. Oh, you have cards on your table. It's just to stay connected with me in any way that you want. It's brand new. I have scripts for healthcare leaders to use when you're having those conversations with your employees. Just fill it out and I'll send it to you. And because I started with scripts for coworkers on how to respond to a disruptive coworker, and that was so popular that I decided to do one just for leaders. Here's some of my favorites. Help me to understand. When somebody tells you about an incident that happened during the night, you sit down with your employees, you say, you know what, this is what I heard happen, help me to understand, what happened last night. It takes them off the defense a little bit, and you really do want to understand what happened. I already mentioned this. I'm not sure you're aware of this. I'm not sure you realize this. Sometimes you come across as fill in the blank. Anytime you use this, though, you must give a recent example. Just yesterday, this morning, you can't just leave it out, floating in the air. You have to give a specific example. Do you ever have somebody say something to you that's so obnoxious that you don't even have any clue what to say back? Look them in the eye and say, you know what, I'm not willing to respond to that. Turn around and walk away. One of my other favorites, because I have a YouTube channel that's called Coffee and Conversations about Nurse Bullying. It's me in my living room having a cup of coffee with you, okay, talking about nurse bullying. And I interviewed my daughter once. She's a school teacher, and she was dealing with a coworker who would embarrass her in front of other people. And she would call me, and she's all upset because she's really bothered when people don't like her or do things that are really rude to her. So I said to her, Kate, the next time she does this, now you have to practice this, okay? Okay? Because in the moment you won't be able to think. Practice this. Next time she says something to you in front of other people, look her in the eye and say, I'm offended by that comment. Probably my most powerful script. I'm offended by that comment, or that comment offends me. And then walk away. And she's so cute when she tells the story of it. She's like, I just kept saying to her, I'm offended by the comment. She said, and her teacher, her coworker said to her, oh, I'm just messing with you, or I'm just kidding. Huh? That's what they do. And my daughter's like, I just kept turning around saying, I'm offended by that comment. I'm offended. It's like, I didn't know what else to say. It's like, I just knew I had to say it. That was over a year and a half ago. This teacher's never done that to her again. I'm telling you, it can be that simple. Now, people say confronting doesn't work. And you're right, sometimes confronting doesn't. I do guarantee not confronting never works. We've been not confronting for decades. And there are some people that I would never confront. I would never sit down with them and say, I'm not sure you're aware of this, or help me to understand. No, you know why? Because I don't think they're mentally healthy. Seriously. There are some people that I'm like, oh, hell no, am I going to have that conversation with him? So what do you do instead? Then you document the heck out of them. All right, do I have anybody here from Human Resources? Where are you? Please, please. Okay, please go back with this, and you have to strengthen the relationship you have with your Human Resource department. This is what I hear all the time. Managers tell me this. I go to Human Resources and I tell them, you need to help me terminate this person. She's toxic, I'm losing people, all these things. HR says, you didn't cross that T, didn't dot that I. Well, did you counsel them? Well, yeah, I counseled them how many times? 5 times? Only 5? You have to counsel them at least 53 times before we have a valid case here. All right, I'm exaggerating a little bit. Then I've talked to sometimes it's the Human Resource Department that brings me in for help. I've talked to so many human resource representatives that this is what they tell me. This manager comes in, demands that I approve a termination. I've never heard about this employee. There's either no documentation or spotty documentation. And oh, by the way, they've been here for 15 years, and every year in their performance review is meets or exceeds expectations. And now they want me to approve a termination. We need to do a better job. And I'm going to tell you, it starts with documenting. When you document, make sure you include the basics. They're up here, okay? Date, time. If there are any witnesses, doesn't matter if the witness also, there we go. The witness also documents what's the incident, and then there's two things that are key for this. If you can include any verbatim comments, include them. You better believe in all that documentation for my nursing assistant, I had a lot of, and she said, my boyfriend knows what shuttle you take, slam dunk. There was a new nurse who approached me after doing a focus group at an organization. Not Nicholas, okay, I've done some work for Nicholas. Stayed after, cried for the first 10 minutes, and then told me her experience. Brand new nurse, 2 weeks on the job, in an ICU. The preceptor had to step off the unit and said to her, hey, I gotta step off. When I come back, she's like, I want you to get the medications ready for this patient. When I come back, we'll give the medications together. She's like, okay, great preceptor. This new nurse had a question about a medication, wanted to call pharmacy. So she went to the nurse sitting at the nurse's station, said, hey, do you know the number for pharmacy? He looked at her and said, yeah, it's 1-800, go F yourself. But said the word. Guess what the other people sitting next to him did? They laughed. At the same time, a patient's family member was coming out from one of the rooms. You better believe when I told her how to document, and he said, it's 1-800, okay? And then here's another key critical aspect of your documentation. Make sure you can clearly align that person's behavior with the patient's safety, patient quality, or patient satisfaction concern, or the way the team communicates with each other. If you can do that, slam dunk. How does this, I always think about the so what. How does it affect patients? Okay? Okay, I'm giving you this as a bonus because these are my newest things and I'm so excited about them and I'm seeing them be successful in organizations. So first of all, and we mentioned this, you have to engage in conversations about behavior. Include elements of healthy workforce in your huddles, in your leadership meetings, in your staff meetings. Every single meeting you have. And I know a lot of people have committees that deal with behavior. And this is what I hear with titles of committees: the Disruptive Behavior Committee, the Bully Prevention Committee. Please don't do that. Like, I will tell you, here's my recommendation, and then there are times that I say, no, change this now, okay? I'm very, decisive. I'm gonna tell you, you should change that all to healthy workforce. Not healthy work environment, it's healthy workforce, because it's the people that we're dealing with here, okay? And it's your people who determine your culture and determine your environment. Please change it to healthy workforce. Add a little bit of education and training, share a video, share an article, okay? And then do some type of how are we handling these problems, especially in your leadership meetings, and you should include in your staff meetings. And then there are 4 initiatives that, this is where, remember I said you gotta empower your employees, you pull your employees in. And they're based on some of the common issues out there. We already said there's shift wars. You need to take a look at how can you set the next shift up for success. What can we do this shift to make it easier on that next shift? To remind people that care happens over a 24-hour period of time. Very old, wise nurse told me when I was brand new, every single day that you work, do one thing to help that next nurse. And you know what? Sometimes the easiest thing was just to hang a courtesy bag. Shift success. When I think of a sacred space, I think of church. I think of nature. I think of this pedicure place where my daughter lives. My daughter lives in Raleigh. First time she found this pedicure place, she's like, Mom, I found the best pedicure place. And so we're sitting in the chairs and we're like, okay? And this woman comes over, she's like this, sacred space. And they had a sign that said, this is a sacred space. No talking, no cell phones, okay? Because they wanted you to enjoy it. I'm thinking, We should do the same thing in healthcare. Where are our sacred spaces? Patients' rooms, patient hallway. I don't know what makes us think that there's this invisible force field around the nurses' station that nobody can hear what we say. Patients and their families hear everything. So it's an initiative that you have some way to remind people, no gossip, no yelling, no cursing, this is a sacred space. And when you overhear it, you time out, sacred space, not here, not now. Take it somewhere else, okay? When I went back into practice 6 years ago, third day off of orientation, came into work, I look at the assignment board. I didn't see my name. I'm an optimist. I'm like, ooh, they don't need me. They forgot to call me. I'm gonna go home. I know all these things I'm gonna do. I said, Lisa, I don't see my name on the assignment board. She's like, well, I'm sorry, Renee, but you got pulled to 5A. Surge of hydrochloric acid in my stomach. I lost my peripheral vision. Thinking, how do I have a conversation with Lisa that's honest and respectful, because I wanted to cry. I did. I'm like, Lisa, I'm not sure you're aware, but today's my third day off of orientation. I'm not confident I know what I'm doing here, let alone another unit. It's like, I know, I'm sorry. But you know what, it's just an observation unit. It'll probably be better there than, a day you'd have here. I'm like, has nothing to do with the patients and everything to do with the people. So as I'm walking the Green Mile down to 5A, nurse at the nurse's station, she's like, are you Renee? I'm like, maybe this is my opportunity to get away. I wanted to say like, no, I'm Linda, okay? Yes, I'm Renee. She's like, Kara, Renee's here. Kara comes out of the break room that was in the nurse's station like this. Wow. Her hair was blowing in the wind, lights shining around her. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, okay? She says, you're Renee. I said, uh-huh. She said, welcome to our home. Consider yourself a guest here today. She said, we're going to do everything we can to make sure you have the best day that you've ever had in this organization. I see you've met Carol. Carol's been here for 30 years. She knows everything about these patients, this unit, this organization. You're in good hands with Carol. Carol says, Renee, come on over here. She said, priorities. If you have to go number 1, you go here. If you got to go number 2, girl, you go over here, okay? Showed me where to get food, water, okay? So here's your med card. I stocked it with everything that you need for the patients you have right now. 2 stickies. She said, this first sticky, when you go to a unit and there's all these different codes for different doors, I can't remember them all, so I put them all in a sticky for you, and she did a diagram of the unit. The second sticky is my cell phone number. She said, you have any questions, you call me. I'm like, I'm not calling. She's like, now Renee, listen to me. I'm going home, taking my cell phone to bed. I'm a light sleeper. You have a question, you call me. I'll wake up, I'll go back to sleep. I'm not back tonight, it's fine. I would much rather you call me if you have a question about these patients than not call me. During the day, I had a patient that kept ripping out his IVs. So second time I'm on the ground cleaning up the blood. Diane, the nursing assistant, she comes over. What did I tell you, Renee? I'm like, I know, Diane, but I can clean this up. She's like, no, you don't understand. You see, there are things that you can do that I can't do. You need to go do those things that I can do. It was the best damn day I've ever had in that organization. That's how you should treat your float people, your pool people, okay? Like guests in your home, because ultimately, who benefits? Most dangerous place to be standing is in between a grizzly mother and her cubs, okay? That's how you need to treat your new employees. And if you're male, you can still be mama bear too, okay? All right, I'm wrapping up here. What else can you do?
Well, that can be a start. Now, my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunts. I like my Allisons. I like my mom. I like my sisters. I like my dad. I like my hair. I like
need to be the role model of what professionalism looks like. They pay attention to you. You need to come in with a positive attitude. We're going to talk a little bit more about positive attitude in my last talk today, but how you show up as the leader matters. You got to hire the right people, because you know once you get them in, it's hard to get them out. I worked with a manager every time, and it was on a neuro unit. Where's Kendra? Where's Kendra? Neuro rocks. She would interview nurses for a position, and at the end of the interview, this is what she'd say: look, I can teach you to be a neuro nurse, but if God and your mother didn't teach you how to be a nice person, I don't want you here. And where I will forgive errors in clinical practice, you make a mistake, no worries. We'll figure it out. We'll get you what you need. You treat somebody with disrespect in my unit, you will be gone. You got to hire the right people. And you have to keep the lines of communication open. You know when somebody comes to you and they say, oh, you know, my coworker did this. Will you document that? Oh, I'm not documenting it. We have the tendency to then say, well, then don't come to me. If you're not willing to do your part, I can't do mine. I actually had a manager tell me, I tell them, you're handcuffing me. I can't do anything for you. That's the worst thing that you can do. Why? It's still going to happen. Now you've just pushed it underground. This is what you say, it's okay. You keep coming to me. And then what you're going to do is use it as a coachable opportunity, okay? And then guess what? When they leave, you document it. Why do we think if we don't witness the behavior that if, you know, we can't document a conversation? You can document the conversation. And I always ask, I'll be talking to a manager and they'll say, but she's never cursed in front of me. Do you believe this to be true? Absolutely. Then you can have the conversation, you can document it. You have to keep the lines of communication open. And you have to do your part. As a leader, it's probably some of the most uncomfortable conversations that we have with people. I wrote an article recently that got a lot of attention titled, How do you tell your best nurse that she's toxic? How do they get to that point that they're toxic? It's because we haven't been doing our part in having honest conversations with them. Everything that I'm asking you to do, though, requires a healthy dose of moral courage. But I promise you, moral courage is just like your bicep muscle. The more you use it, the bigger and stronger it gets. And as leaders, you need to flex that moral courage muscle, especially when it comes to the way your people are treating each other. All right, it's my last slide, so I'm going to ask everybody to stand. Come on, sitting is the new smoking. Everybody up. If you can. So I'm going to end with the story. And I will be here all day. If you have questions, please come see me, okay? I know I didn't have any time for questions. A pencil maker told the pencil 5 important lessons before putting it in the box. Everything you do will always leave a mark. You can always correct the mistakes you make. What's important is what's inside of you. In life, you will undergo painful sharpenings, which will only make you better. And to be the best pencil, you have to allow yourself to be held and guided by the hand that holds you. So take a look around the room. We're all different. We do different things. But inside, where it really counts, we're just a bunch of lead. No, I'm just kidding. We're not just a bunch of lead. Okay. And I'll end with the quote by the late Jim Rohn, who's my fave. All of us needs to recognize how valuable each of us are. And each of us needs to recognize how valuable we all are. So thank you so, so much. Like I said, I'll be here all day. Yay! I think it's break time. Thank you. I know, but you've heard it so many times.
Every time I hear, I love it.